Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Save Our Services statewide virtual Medicaid rally. I'm Ellie Roofer, a parent and one of the founders of New York City Fair. We are the SOS Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Coalition, made up of New York City Fair, Leand of Long Island, Any Day of the Capital Region, and the Family Committee of Dawny in the Buffalo area, together with New York City's 5 developmental disabilities councils. We are collaborating to raise awareness of the threats to Medicaid within the proposed Big Beautiful Bill to people with IDD and those that love them. We are frightened so that we all can understand everything presented in this rally. Our Zoom master has enabled caption translations. It is at the bottom of your screen on the right, little box labeled CC. Select English as the language you will listen to, and then select My Caption Language to translate into your choice. These instructions and more are in the chat. The rally is an opportunity for us to hear about how both the House bill and the Senate bill will hurt New York State, specifically people with IDD, parents, self-advocates, and DSPs. We thank the self-advocates and parents who are willing to explain what it means to them and to our legislators who advocate for us. It is up to us to do all we can do to protect people from the looming threat. And here to help us understand what we are up against is Wini Schiff from the Interagency Council. Wini?
Thanks, Ellie. Hi, everybody. So Medicaid pays for virtually all OPWDD services plus healthcare. And the Big Beautiful Bill means a $13.5 billion cut to New York. SNAP is also being cut by $2.1 billion for New York, and also $4.4 billion in cuts to federal housing aid. All these things are essential for people with disabilities, their families, and the DSPs who are the backbone of our service system. We have always had bipartisan support for our issues. And right now in Washington, D.C., the Republicans are in charge. So we have 26 representatives in the House. 7 of them are Republicans. And we need to reach out, though, to all of our representatives to tell them our stories and urge them to protect Medicaid and other essential federal funding. Our 2 senators are both 100% supportive of our asks, and we are thrilled that they are joining us this morning via video. First, Leader Chuck Schumer, followed by Senator Gillibrand.
Hi, everyone. It's Senator Chuck Schumer. And as you all know, Republicans are doing something utterly sickening. As we speak, Republicans are trying to ram through Donald Trump's big, ugly bill, which we call the Big Beautiful Betrayal. It includes the largest cuts to health care in American history, over $1 trillion cut from Medicaid and the ACA, the largest cut to SNAP, feeding hungry children and hungry people ever, $300 billion, all to give more tax breaks to billionaires. Isn't that disgusting? This big, ugly bill would be downright devastating for New York. Over 1.5 million New Yorkers would lose their health insurance. Local hospitals, nursing homes, community health centers would be decimated. Many would close. People on SNAP would be cut down to just $5 a day for food. Imagine. Eggs cost more than $5 a dozen. $5 a day for hungry children. Gross. And community-based services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities would totally be jeopardized. So my message is this. Democrats are fighting this morally bankrupt bill with every fiber of our being. And I will do everything in my power to stop any of these cuts from ever happening. But I need your help. I want everyone to know that this is not inevitable. Republicans in our New York delegation say they're opposed to this cut. That's what they tell their constituents, and then they go ahead and vote for it, hoping New Yorkers won't notice. We have to make clear to them this is unacceptable. Call, write, email, call again. And get all your friends and neighbors to do the same. Your actions can turn the tide against this terrible bill. So thanks for all your work. Let's fight together to stop this legislation, one of the worst pieces of legislation that we've seen in decades.
Hello, I'm U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and thank you for inviting me to participate in the Save Our Services virtual rally. 26 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that people with disabilities have the right to live in their communities instead of being forced into institutions. But these rights cannot be fully recognized when the supports and services necessary for self-determination are gutted. This is the crisis we face today. Cuts to Medicaid threaten services in schools, employment, and most importantly, in the home. As your senator, I am committed to fighting for Medicaid funding and the essential services it provides. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak today, and I look forward to continuing this important fight alongside you.
Thank you, Senator Schumer and Gillibrand. The next person that I am going to introduce is Elizabeth Benjamin. She is the Vice President and Managing Director at the Community Service Society of New York and an expert on the details of the Big Beautiful Bill's effect on our healthcare. Elizabeth?
Good morning, everybody. It is such an honor for the Community Service Society of New York to join you all today. I think many of you know that we have the incredible privilege of running the state's independent ombuds program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I will put in a link to our webpage. We're about to, on the CSS website, we're about to build a website that'll be super interactive that folks can go to in the next couple of months. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk to you about this horrible, horrible bill that's pending in Congress. It's called H.R. 1. It's also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. If it is enacted, 16 million low and moderate income people, including people with disabilities, will lose health insurance in the next 10 years. That means, and why are we, I just think it's really important to focus on what these cuts to health coverage, why would they do that? They're doing that in order to pay for huge tax cuts for the rich. Rich people are already getting richer and richer. So if this bill is enacted, I saw that rich people will get, anywhere from like 5% richer. They'll get less. They'll get 5% of the tax relief, but poor people, the lowest income 10%, will have to pay more in taxes in order for rich people to pay less in taxes. This is just wrong. But now let's come and talk about New York. This bill paints a bullseye on New York and New Yorkers. 1.5 million New Yorkers will lose coverage quickly, not over 10 years. First year, we will lose coverage. Why? Because 10.7% of all the nation's tax cuts encompassed by the One Big Beautiful Bill impacts New York. So this bill is particularly bad for our state. And what's amazing about this is that our state has 7 members of Congress who voted for this bill. Actually, it's 6 because one of them slept through the vote. But essentially, if we just flip a couple of these members of Congress, we can stop this. And so that's why New York is so important. Those 7 members of Congress have been working on what? Not protecting us from these horrible Medicaid and Affordable Care Act cuts. No, they have been working on getting more tax cuts. The state and local tax cut deduction increased from 10%, from $10,000 to $40,000. Well, that means that, who benefits from that? Mostly middle and upper income people, and really upper income people. So again, what is the trade-off here? We need to really fight for New York. We're disproportionately targeted by this bill. We must stop it. So the other thing that's really bad about it is it will also raise taxes because it's shifting the cost of people's health insurance to us. So we will have a $13.5 billion budget hole every year. What comprises that 13.5 billion? 2.7 million in additional Medicaid, because some of the folks that, are currently getting coverage through Essential Plan will be shifted to Medicaid. $7.6 billion lost to our Essential Plan program, which provides free, affordable, quality healthcare up to 250% of people, 2 times the poverty level. And that is an incredible New York special thing that we have. It's so wonderful. And it's allowed under the Affordable Care Act. They're trying to gut that. Well, our hospitals will lose $1.3 billion. And it'd also be $1 billion cut to the Medicaid program. And on top of that, for those of us who have commercial insurance, those premiums are expected to go up by 38% of poverty, an average of $2,700 a year. And then if that wasn't worth enough, so people are going to lose coverage, 1.5 million uninsured. Price of insurance is going to go up by about $2,700 a year. On top of that, more people will be sicker and die. And why is that? Because there are all sorts of evidence over the last 10 years that when you provide health insurance, people have a lower chance at lower rates of morbidity and mortality. And researchers at University of Pennsylvania and Yale have estimated that this bill will cause an extra 42,000 deaths every year. So I want to just also speak to the fact super fast that there's been a lot of so-called reassurances from our members, those 7 members of Congress saying, oh, the IDD community will be exempted from these cuts. But that's not true, because part of it is to prove you are going to have to recertify twice a year. We know people lose coverage every time there's a recertification or renewal moment. People might be caught up in the work requirements thing. Again, anytime, and then they're adding co-pays to Medicaid. So it does impact our community, and you all must be motivated to let them know that you're not buying their lies. This is going to hurt New York, and it's going to hurt our community. So act now to reach out to members of Congress, all 7 who have the chance to really, it's in their hands. We can stop this and stop it now. This bill's bad for New York. You can make a difference. I'm going to put in a link we have at CSS. Maybe you have other links, but we have this one thing where all you have to do is click one button and it just rolls you over from the 7 members of Congress. You can just talk to each one of them, leave a message, talk to the people. If they answer the phone, you'll be done in 10 minutes. Please join us and fight this horrible bill. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. There's a few questions in the chat about, like, what if those 7 members of Congress are not my representatives?
That doesn't matter. They represent New York. New York will be disproportionately impacted. You will lose your your coverage will be threatened. You can make a difference. This is the crunch time week. They want to vote and close this down by July 4th. They need to hear your calls now. Call early, call often, call constantly. They need to have their phone lines shut down. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm sort of passionate about this.
Excellent. Thank you. That's what we need to do. Thank you so much. So we're about to look at a pie chart, but while we're pulling it up, I want to just say that in 2011, there were federal cuts resulting in 13% lower reimbursement for each person receiving IDD services, and this time the cut is much larger. So what we're looking at here is Medicaid cuts produced by each feature of the big, beautiful bill. Together, these cuts will make it much more difficult for all populations to get and keep their Medicaid, as Elizabeth was just saying, and will present a new costly administrative burden to the state. So we're not even, talking about the cost of that. The claims of eliminating only fraud and abuse are false. Nationwide, 4/5 of all improper payments, which is the category that includes fraud and abuse, or waste, fraud, and abuse, it's mostly due to missing documentation. So for New York, this means that only 0.28% of improper payments are due to fraud, waste, and abuse. And there's no way that eliminating only fraud, waste, and abuse is going to produce the savings necessary to fund the other features of the big, beautiful bill. So, it's not about fraud, waste, and abuse. This is really a cut to Medicaid, and all people who rely on Medicaid will suffer. Next, do we have Senator Fahy with us yet?
Yes, she joined.
Okay, excellent. So I'm so thrilled to be able to introduce our Senate champion and chair of the Senate Committee for Developmental Disabilities in the Senate, Senator Pat Fahy.
Hi, good morning. Good to good to be with all, and thank you for having me. I think I just caught the tail end of your presentation, Winnie, and I'll just add overall for the state, excuse me, overall, we are expecting roughly $13 billion in cuts, at least versus the House proposal, or 13.5 billion. Who's cutting it or who's counting at this point? It will affect every county. It will affect every area of the state. There is talk we would come back into session to try to grapple with that. It's hard to know if we will. And it's hard to know right now what will happen. Winnie, I saw the tail end of your slide. Some expect the Senate may make things worse. The US Senate, I should be clear in saying, it's really, we are in a very, very uncertain time. I don't need to, that's stating the obvious for all of you. I think we will just have to deal with it as it comes. I will say the governor, the Senate leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and the speaker, Carl Hastie, have said for months, we can't backfill. You can't backfill $13 billion in cuts. So what we do is it really does remain to be seen. I will say I've already seen a little bit of the chilling effect of this in the budget. The longer the budget delayed this year, the state budget, that is, when we went well into April and beginning of May, I did see already that we were scaling back, if you will, on a number of things. And I think that that's going to be continued. It just has a real chilling effect. So what are we doing? I think we're all trying to speak out. I try to attend every single rally I know of, whether it's 5 people or 5,000. I restarted a podcast I had done in 2019, restarted it this year. And the theme of the entire, it's called Chat with Pat, by the way. But the theme of it this year is federal actions, local impact. So what we're trying to do is have different guests really break down the local impact, because as you know, it's so hard to break through and really make people understand how impactful this is. I'm new to the Senate. For those of you that may not know me, I represent Albany County, most of Albany County, most of Schenectady County, and all of Montgomery County. I was in the Assembly for 12 years, and in Montgomery County alone, I just had the stat last week, but it's well over 40%. And well, I think across the board in the state, it's over 40%. Maybe it's over 50% in Montgomery County are Medicaid reliant. So we are trying to do as many events as possible to let people know every area will be hurt. That's a very rural county. It's a lot of veterans there, a lot of farmers there, a lot of people, lots of low income. I overlap there with Lee Stefanik, to be perfectly blunt. Paul Tonko goes up through Amsterdam, and then the rest of the county, which is a huge county, although small in population. I overlap with Lee Stefanik, and I really go to every event I can out there to make sure people are aware of what is going on. My guess is whatever the Senate does is going to be now a hard sell, given what we are seeing from some of the US House members, at least from our own state. It's going to be a hard sell. So we thought we'd know a lot more by July 1st, because that's the deadline with the US Senate, or that's the kind of self-imposed deadline. But that's got to go back to the US House. So this could really drag out, and we won't really have a good sense of it probably until September. But the point is, we are using every method we have to try to call this out, to alert people, to try to make this a bipartisan concern and bipartisan education so that people recognize this is more than your food banks and food pantries that are going to be hurt. This is the hospitals. I was visiting St. Mary's Hospital in Amsterdam last week and have been talking to Ellis Hospital in Schenectady, in regular touch with Albany Med and St. Peter's. All are incredibly nervous about what this could mean. In fact, they're all quite concerned. Ellis Hospital is already on the distressed hospital list. St. Mary's is very close to that. So whether it is close to being financially unstable. So whether it's hospitals, whether it is anyone along the chain receiving Medicaid, our seniors, obviously, all individuals with disabilities are vulnerable here. So, I just encourage you. I also should add, I have an e-blast that we send out weekly. Every week to two, we send out updates, more like 2 weeks when we're in the off session, where we give quick updates on what we are doing, as well as updates on legislation. And we always try to have some federal updates in there. If you don't receive those, feel free to email. I'm not sure who, Barbara or whoever the organizer was, and send us your emails. We're happy to add you on. I should add that goes to about 16,000 people. We know less than half, two-thirds open that, but it is again our way of really trying to bring attention to this issue and keep calling it out. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not sure if we are doing Q&A. I didn't have a lot of background on the setup here, but please let me know. I'm happy to take questions and just tell you we'll continue to push. But no one has a plan. I mean, the good news is the governor has put out updates on this. Our Senate staff, our budget staff has put out updates on this. The Assembly have put out updates. So everybody is trying to get the word out. So all members, I think on both sides of the aisle are very concerned here. And again, it's an estimated, if we are hit with those $13 billion in cuts, it's estimated that about 1 million current enrollees will lose coverage, which is about 15% of the entire program. And again, I don't see how anybody really is unaffected, but as the new chair of the Disabilities Committee, which I'm so pleased to represent, we know that your populations are the most vulnerable. Many of them have just really been through a tough year with this conversion on the CDPAP. So it's another whammy, or a double whammy, if you will. Maybe it's multiple whammies on the system. There were some efforts to make some changes there, but those have not gone through. The whole reason for some changes on CDPAP, the implementation has been a disaster, but it was to begin to rein in some costs there. Remains to be seen how successful that will be. Oh, I see there are some. Let me just catch up with you on the chat, if that's what am I supposed to be?
Actually, Senator Fahy, thank you so much for all you do. We don't really have time for Q&A or things.
Okay.
Yeah, we're answering questions in the chat, like.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but we would love to invite you back for a real conversation. This is more, like a presentation. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and I am happy to come back anytime. I really, please know, I value and I recognize, I see a number of familiar faces here. Please know I'll actually be at the Center for the Disabled this afternoon here in Albany, which is one of the biggest ones. I'll be there this afternoon. I'm meeting with the senior group later this afternoon. So we are actively engaging as many people as possible and look forward to joining you anytime. Thank you for all your advocacy. Please know it matters.
Thank you.
We do have, SOS does have a meeting set up with you coming up. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
So if you'd like to get on the mailing list for Senator Fahy, put your email address in the chat. I noticed a couple people were. I want to acknowledge that some people in the chat are saying, don't call it a beautiful bill. Point taken. We're going to be calling it a big bad bill for the rest of this presentation. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Matt Hoffel. He is an excellent advocate who, don't play it yet, who who speaks at rallies and conferences all over the state. And take it away, Matt.
My name's Matt Hoffel. I am a person receiving services in New York State. I receive it with Medicaid. It provides a place to live for me. It provides medicine for that helps me live, and doctor's appointments, and even the group home that I live in. The staff that I have help give me they help me and many others in my house by cooking, cleaning, transportation to and from doctor's appointments, and more. I need the medicine that Medicaid provides because the medical issues I have are epilepsy and diabetes and a few others. Without the medicine for diabetes, which is insulin and other medication, I wouldn't be having my insulin, which is not only a medication, but a life source. And without that, I'd be dead because who knows what would happen. Same thing goes for my epilepsy. Without the medication, I'd be having seizures, and who knows how long they would last, when they would happen, and who would be able to help me get through it. So please save Medicaid, because I, like many others, thousands of others, need it to live.
Thank you, Matt. People often don't know the full range of services covered by Medicaid for people with IDD. Our next speakers will talk about how Medicaid has helped them and what reduced Medicaid coverage would mean. So first we'll hear from Amanda Hinkson about services for her young daughter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Hinkson, and I'm honored to be here today. I am a mother of a young woman who has benefited deeply from Medicaid-funded early intervention. I had my daughter when I was a teenager. She was born blind with no light perception. She does not use words to communicate, and she requires full assistance for her daily living. Today at 17, she receives OPWDD services and attends Lavelle School for the Blind in the Bronx. Her journey began with early intervention. She first received in-home supports 4 times a week: speech, feeding, orientation and mobility, and physical therapy. Later, she began attending Lighthouse in Manhattan, where she received in-person supports. These supports were consistent and compassionate and deeply impactful. It was physical therapy that helped her learn to walk, something that changed everything. While she continues to require intensive support, being able to move independently has opened doors for a greater level of engagement and confidence and dignity. And this is what Medicaid makes possible. And it is what is at risk when we talk about cuts to early intervention. The data supports what families like mine know firsthand. Every $1 invested in early intervention can save $7 to $17 in long-term support costs. Early intervention is not a bonus. It laid the foundation for my daughter's growth, her stability, and must be protected for all children who need it.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next speaker is Latavia Sturdivant. She is a super advocate and holds the title of Wheelchair Queen 2025. Without further ado, Latavia.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Latavia Sturdivant. I'm a licensed speech language pathologist in New York and Maine, an adjunct professor at Lehman College, the host, content creator, and editor of Queens on the Road podcast, a certified lead advocate for the Amputee Coalition, and proudly Miss Wheelchair New York State 2025. I'm here today because Medicaid is a vital lifeline for the ably different community, and it is under threat. Proposed cuts from the House and Senate could devastate essential services that help us not just survive, but thrive. One critical area I want to spotlight is the durable medical equipment industry. This includes wheelchairs, prosthetics, orthotics, canes, breast pumps, things anyone might need. But because of low Medicaid reimbursement rates, independent providers are disappearing and the quality is declining. We now only have 2 nationalized wheelchair vendors in our state. I have personal experience with how a dying industry can impact our community. In December 2024, my wheelchair tipped over on my way to work due to worn out wheels. I hit my head on the concrete. Thankfully, I wasn't seriously injured, but this should not be happening. In February of this year, a simple screw came loose, and the earliest repair appointment wasn't until May. And it's not just wheelchairs. The prosthetic and orthotic industry is also shrinking by 19% in recent years. If Medicaid enrollment periods are shortened, delays will only grow worse. These services aren't luxuries. These services are lifelines. They allow us to be seen, to participate, to belong. So to our legislators, please invest in us. Don't cut us out. And to my fellow advocates, our voices matter, and when we speak together, change follows. Thank you.
Thank you, Latavia. Absolutely. We have to lift our voices together. Our next speaker is Danielle Lanzetta. She is another super advocate, and she lives with her aging parents and depends on Medicaid for a range of services. Danielle?
Medicaid is my lifeline to living in the community. My name is Danielle Lanzetta. I am a self-advocate. I have cerebral palsy, spastic quadriplegia, which means I have very limited use of my arm, hands, and legs. I have always lived with both my parents, who have sacrificed their lives for me and taken care of all my physical needs. But my parents are both getting older. They are now 77 and 80 years of age. As a result, I have home attendants paid through Medicaid who come into my home to help me in all my daily life activities, getting in and out of bed, eating, dressing, and yes, even toileting. These 3 wonderful aides also take me to doctors and clinical appointments. They are a vital part of my everyday life, and without them, I would not be able to live, work, vote, or contribute to my local community and economy. Additionally, they help me to engage in advocacy efforts. Part of my daytime activities include being an independent advocate and consultant for a major hospital in the Bronx. Finally, besides the services they provide me, they provide my parents with emotional and physical relief that is irreplaceable. The fear of losing part or all of my Medicaid due to proposed federal cuts and the fear of losing my parents cannot be described. Just to give you an example, on June 2nd, my home health aid services ended due to a clerical error by HRA. I was given no warning, only to find out at 4:45 in the afternoon that I would have no services for the foreseeable future. After 1 week without home health aides, the services were restored. But later, once again, my services were abruptly ended due to another error which lasted 2 days. Each time it was emotionally draining and required tremendous advocacy from myself, my parents, legislators, care coordinator, agency staff, and other allies to get my services back. This interruption of life-sustaining care in my opinion, should be illegal nationwide. If we are to give all people with developmental disabilities an equal chance at normalcy, then AIDS should be allowed to give continuity of care and be paid retroactively. Keeping people at home is much more cost effective than the institutional alternative. Lastly, I need to mention one conversation that occurred during this Medicaid service disruption. My mother told my home care supervisor, "I'm getting older and I cannot care for her by myself." To which the supervisor replied, "Don't tell me that, because if you can't care for her, I will have to call an ambulance and have her removed and sent to a hospital. From there, she will be placed in a group home or nursing home. The forceful removal of severely and profoundly disabled individuals from their homes should be illegal if it does not match with their current life plan. Respect for the individual's wishes needs to take place if we are to truly be a person-centered system of care." Thank you for your time, everyone.
The next speaker is a mom, Tina Veal, and she's going to be talking about her daughter who lives in a group home.
Why worry about Medicaid? As a mother of a 39-year-old daughter with special needs, I am deeply concerned about potential Medicaid cuts and their profound impact on her life. My daughter currently resides in a 24-hour residential setting where dedicated direct support professionals provide comprehensive care and assistance. These professionals are essential in helping her navigate daily activities, including personal hygiene, meal preparation, medication management, medical appointments, and recreational outings. Without Medicaid, the entire support system that enables my daughter to live independently would collapse. I would be forced to bring her back home and assume all the responsibilities currently managed by her residential care team. This would not only disrupt her established routine and sense of independence, but also place an immense emotional, professional burden on me and my other daughter. The potential elimination of Medicaid would have far-reaching consequences beyond our personal situation. The direct support professionals who currently care for her would lose their jobs, creating additional economic strain. Moreover, my daughter's quality of life would be significantly diminished, as she would lose the professional support that allows her to live with dignity and as much independence as possible. I urgently implore policymakers to recognize the critical importance of Medicaid for individuals with disabilities and their families. Maintaining this essential support system is not just a matter of funding, but of preserving human dignity, independence, and quality of life for some of our most vulnerable community members. Thank you. I am Tina Veal.
Thank you, Tina. Next, we'll hear from another mom, Margaret Rouse-Diala. She's been advocating for decades, and we'll talk about her worries about services for her son, Rico.
My name is Margaret Rouse-Diala. My husband and I are both 82 years old. Our 55-year-old son, Rico, has autism, very limited speech, challenging behaviors, and requires one-to-one staffing during the day. Rico has lived in a group home for 35 years. He's lived in the same group home for 30 years with Michael and Scott, two of the other 9 residents. They are family. Rico is well cared for, happy, and productive as a volunteer for Meals on Wheels, which he has done for more than 10 years. The devastating and unnecessary proposed cuts to Medicaid would quite simply upend our lives. I have a heart condition, a bad back, and mobility limitations. I never dreamed that at this stage of my life, I would have sleepless nights, worried about what will happen to Rico, his quality of care. I worry that we will have to take Rico home. Then I worry we won't be able to take care of him. And then I worry that we can't leave him in a facility that's underfunded. All of this because of unnecessary and devastating proposed cuts to Medicaid. It has to stop. We have to stop the cuts. Why is this even happening? What sort of a country takes away from people with disabilities in order to give a tax cut to the ultra wealthy? Do they really need more money?
This is a good question, Margaret. Thank you. So let's look at a graphic of the tax cuts. Actually, it's a graphic that shows how the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP make it possible to give that $1.1 trillion in tax cuts for people making over $500,000. And I'd like to emphasize that Tina and Margaret talked about their worry about the loss of certified residential opportunities group homes. Any kind of residential services that OPWDD provides are in jeopardy. So Medicaid funds OPWDD services like group homes, independent living, day programs, employment, self-direction, respite, and other essential services like healthcare. And losing these services would be disastrous for people with IDD, their families, the DSPs who we depend on to provide services, and basically everybody. Our next speaker is Jackie Goldberg, and she is going to talk about self-direction specifically and her worry that there won't be a residential option when they're ready for her son.
My name is Jackie Goldberg, as Wini said, and I'm speaking today for my son Samuel, who is not able to speak for himself.
Jackie, your camera's not on.
My camera's not on. Is it on now?
No.
We can see Sam.
Okay.
And hearing you is the most important thing, but we'd love to see you too.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Back to this. You can just look at Sam. Sam has profound autism, seizure disorder, severe OCD, and tics. He also has self-injurious behaviors that require one-to-one eyes on him at all times in order to keep him safe. In many ways, I feel I have an eternal toddler who will never be able to live without 24/7 support. Sam's self-directed Medicaid budget allows me to hire the experienced one-to-one community rehabilitation staff needed to keep him safe. His Medicaid budget provides community classes that help him stay fit and healthy, socialize, practice communication, and work on independence. Cooking, as you can see in the picture, classes teach him how to make simple and healthy meals, and swim and exercise give him an outlet for his body in safe and purposeful ways. Sam's community classes give him structure, purpose, and a quality of life. His classes give me hope that even as a 25-year-old, with the right staff and environment, he can still learn, make friends, and have meaning in his life. If Medicaid cuts eliminate or reduce Sam's community classes, his days would be lost to a cycle of self-injury, endless OCD repetitions, and lots of Barney videos. Without these classes, Sam will surely regress and lose the skills he's worked so hard to gain. If Sam's Medicaid budget is cut, the burden of his care, which honestly already overwhelms me, will only increase. I am scared that with these Medicaid cuts, they will eliminate the prospect of him ever having enough support to leave my home. I am even more terrified that these cuts will eventually mean his sister will have to sacrifice her career and family to care for her brother. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jackie. So our next speaker is actually Matt Estep, who's going to read excerpts from a letter that Bernard Carabello wrote about the threat of institutionalization. Bernard is a well-known advocacy giant, founder of the State Advocacy Association of New York State, a self-advocacy association of New York State, who lived at Willowbrook and worked with Geraldo Rivera to expose the horrors of institutional life and helping to close Willowbrook and other institutions like it. We're thrilled that he's with us today, and Matt is going to read excerpts from his letter.
In 1972, I escaped the Willowbrook State School. There, I experienced torture and abuse alongside thousands of other people with disabilities. Though I'm best known for fighting my way out of there, I'm even more proud of the life I've lived since. I've lived on my own, in my own apartment. I founded a statewide not-for-profit run by advocates with disabilities, and I worked for 37 years for the state of New York, helping to make the lives of people like me better. I'm 75 years old, and my cerebral palsy has been getting worse as I've gotten older. Each day, I'm able to do a little bit less than the day before. It's a slow, scary process. Sometimes I think about how fortunate I was to get my freedom from Willowbrook, only to now watch it gradually slip away. I'm on the cusp of qualifying for Medicaid, but now Congress is threatening to snatch it away from me. Congress's current plan to gut Medicaid to help pay for billionaire tax cuts makes me feel like everything I've worked for and saved for has been just to provide a big benefits check to the one percenters. Worse still, what this means is that Congress is putting a price on my freedom and the freedom of millions of other older adults and people with disabilities. Yes, over time, the kinds of in-home assistance I rely on to take care of my personal needs will cost something. But all I hear is politicians planning to make sure they don't pay too much to keep me in the community and out of the kind of institution I grew up in. Our politicians talk a lot about freedom, but whose freedom? I don't think the ones planning to slash Medicaid are talking about my freedom. For me, Medicaid is freedom. It's knowing where your next meal will come from. It's knowing if someone will come to help me get out of bed and into my wheelchair. It's knowing if I'll get to bathe today or not. Politicians who only talk about Medicaid as benefits or an entitlement program just don't get it. I know what it's like to lose my freedom. I lost mine when I was too young to know what it was. Without Medicaid, the price of freedom for millions of older Americans and Americans with disabilities will only go up. It may mean going days or longer without food or help with dressing and bathing. It may mean relying more on neighbors, charities, and volunteer organizations to make ends meet. Finding ways to live in the community will get harder and harder. Community living for many will become community struggle. For others, community dying. What many people don't realize is that Congress's plan to cut Medicaid isn't just a problem for me and people like me with disabilities. It's a problem for everyone. Medicaid funds hospital services that people without disabilities rely on. Medicaid funds services for older people that Medicare doesn't cover. Medicaid funds services that millions of parents of students with disabilities need to keep them in school. Like it or not, we're all in this together. Nowadays, in all the reporting about Congress's plans for Medicaid and other services that millions of Americans with disabilities rely on, I see the same old unfeeling attitude about the price of our freedom coming up in a new, perverse way. Some of these politicians will continue to back their big, beautiful billionaire benefits program. But for those who care, know that we Americans with disabilities have fought like hell to get our freedom. For those who don't, we'll all too happily show you.
Thank you so much for all you have done for all of us. And we are all with you, and we're together. We're going to make sure that we preserve services. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Janine Long is our next speaker, and her life is very different from Bernard's, and that is because of advocacy. Janine is frightened about what she stands to lose. Janine?
My name is Janine Long, and I am 47 years old. I have autism, intellectual and developmental disabilities, diabetes, and high blood pressure. My programs in healthcare would be gone if there is no Medicaid. My programs help me and give me a life. I don't know what I will do without my programs, my friends too. What will happen to us? I can't sleep because I am so scared. Our lives will be ruined. Don't take away the only thing we have. The government doesn't care about us. We are good people and need to live a life. I vote. And we are a lot of people who vote. My friends too. We never did anything wrong. We are not fraud. Please don't do this to us. We are sad and very scared too. Please, please, please don't do this to us. The Medicaid cuts are very bad and will hurt a lot of people. Where I just sit home and do nothing. That's not a quality of life. The money cut from Medicaid is going to the billionaires for that tax cut. So I can't go the program and the rich get richer. That's not fair to me and my friends. Stop thinking we are less than. We matter too.
We matter too. so glad that you said I vote. We all need to be doing that and, vote our interest. And I hope that the elected officials understand that we vote. I want to say a little bit about advocacy, and then we have a couple more speakers. Our advocacy has already worked. Don't feel like there's no hope here. Threats to Medicaid, including block grants and block grants to states, and an overall reduction in the federal matching percentage for Medicaid, they were off the table from the beginning, and it was because of our voices. So our 7 House Republicans, they do know how important Medicaid is to us, but they have heard us, they have responded, but they absolutely have to keep hearing from us and hearing our messages, and not just those Republicans in the House, although they are the ones who make the decisions. We need to tell our stories and give, ammunition, as it were, to all of the Democratic representatives that we have in both the House and the Senate. So, keep on telling your stories, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in just a second. So our next speaker is BJ Stasio. He's a past president of the Self-Advocacy Association of New York State. He's a black belt in the art of advocacy, and he is our next speaker.
Hello, my name is BJ Stasio, and I'm here to tell you my Medicaid story, which revolves around what I need during the day to do what I need to do to have the life that I choose, which is important to me. The Medicaid allows me to get what is long-term personal care from Erie County, where I live in Western New York, and the long-term personal care allows me to have the assistance to get up during the day, to shower, to dress, because I'm total assistance, and without that assistance, I would either be sleeping in my chair like I was during COVID, or be doing my advocacy work from my bed. Without the help that I receive, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And yes, it does scare me to think that tomorrow the help could be gone, but guess what? Fear is what people want us to have, so we shut up and be quiet and don't speak up. And yes, I know these are scary times for people, and it's like that. It's okay to be scared, but use the fear as the power to tell your story, because your story has power. Every story has power, and change doesn't happen in a vacuum. So please rise up and tell your story, because it matters, and don't think it doesn't. The only way things change is by telling your story. So I encourage everybody to tell their Medicaid story, and maybe one thing you tell an elected official will get them to think, gee, that could be me in that person's shoes. So please tell your story. Thank you.
Thank you, VJ. Rise up and tell your story. So we have one more speaker. I'm going to turn it back to Jackie, who will show you and talk to you about how to advocate.
You've heard now about Medicaid and SNAP cuts and how they will devastate the developmentally and intellectually disabled community, as well as really New Yorkers as a whole. The most vulnerable would be impacted the most, and all of us need to fight back against these cuts. You've already taken the first step towards advocacy by being here with us today. Now, make your voices heard by signing on to the one-click campaigns highlighted on the screen. The one-click has icons which allow you to directly email, call, and tweet your legislators and ask them to stop Medicaid and SNAP cuts. You just need to put in your name, address, and title, and it will populate. There is an email already written for you, and you can also add your personal story. For those who are comfortable, phone calls are great. And you can do this every day. We may not win on every issue, but for sure, if we don't fight, we will certainly lose. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It was a great conversation. Thanks to all our speakers. Thanks to SOS for bringing us all together. And if you wanted to find out who your House representative is, you can go to house.gov in the upper right side. It says find your representative. You enter your zip code. But the one click that Jackie just talked about will also connect you directly with your representative, so you don't even have to know who they are. But just in case you wanted to check it out. So thanks, everybody.